United States President Donald Trump visits the Middle East. Can he make progress towards achieving peace in the troubled region? Hello, I'm Anand Naidu, and this is The Heat. US President Donald Trump has wrapped up his visit to the Middle East after stops in Saudi Arabia, Israel and the occupied West Bank. Tuesday, he was in Bethlehem, where he met with the president of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas. Trump hopes to reopen a peace process between the Israelis and Palestinians. Negotiations between the two sides broke down in 2014. It's a challenge he's called the ultimate deal. Trump also visited Israel, where he met with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And while Trump offered no new details on how to achieve progress between the Israelis and Palestinians, he urged Netanyahu and Abbas to work for peace.
Making peace, however, will not be easy. We all know that. Both sides will face tough decisions. But with determination, compromise, and the belief that peace is possible, Israelis and Palestinians can make a deal.
Trump also discussed terrorism on this trip and denounced the Monday night attack in Manchester in England that killed more than 20 and injured about 60 people.
So many young, beautiful, innocent people living and enjoying their lives murdered by evil losers in life.
Okay, let's get to our panel right now. Joining me here in the studio is Dan Arbell. He is a former Deputy Chief of Mission at the Israeli Embassy in Washington. With us from New York is Raghida Dergham. She is a columnist and senior diplomatic correspondent for Hayat. Joining us in the studio too is Khalil Jahshan. He is the Executive Director of the Arab Center here in Washington, D.C. Welcome to all of you to the studio. Raghida, let me start with you. Trump has been to Saudi Arabia, to Israel, and to the occupied West Bank. What's your broad takeaway of what he's done on this trip?
Frankly,
go ahead, Raghida. I'll get you in a moment. Go ahead, Raghida.
Okay. I was saying that obviously he re-established relations with the Arab region, with the Gulf states in particular. It's a security relationship as well as political and economic relationship. And I thought that the fact that he met with heads of states of Muslim countries and Arab countries in one shot was also about, in one way, and has a relationship with his trip to Israel and Palestine, because basically what he wanted, really the approach with the Palestinian issue is to be from the Muslim world and Arab world to come together with the Palestinians in that peace with Israel that he aspires to. All in all, I thought it was a successful trip. Definitely, it changed the sort of a chatter here in the U.S. about the president. And I think in the Gulf states, in Saudi Arabia in particular, they were very pleased that there is a shift away from the policies of President Barack Obama.
Dan, would the Israelis also see this as a successful trip?
Absolutely. I think that after 8 strained years between President Obama and Prime Minister Netanyahu, Prime Minister Netanyahu was looking for a reset, and I think that he got that reset with Donald Trump's visit. They're very close personally, and their views are very much aligned with one another. And so I think that the 28-hour visit of Donald Trump to Israel and the Palestinian Authority was a good way of resetting relations.
You know, Dan, as far as Israel was concerned, he was very blunt in his assessment of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, saying if Israel wants peace with its Arab neighbors, the cost will be resolving the generations-old standoff with the Palestinians. There were some lofty sentiments from him, but no concrete plan. He didn't come there with a roadmap saying this is the way we're going.
Absolutely. I think that's something that's missing, because while he was stating his desire to move this forward and bring Israelis and Palestinians together, and he did manage to keep everybody happy, the Arab world, the Sunni Arab world, the Palestinians, and the Israelis. But that's because he did not dive into the details. He needs to do that if he wants to achieve progress, and he hasn't done that yet. Okay, Khalil, what is your assessment of the trip?
My perspective is slightly different. There is no doubt that this was a historic trip. The magnitude of the meetings, the 3 summits, has never happened before. to have more than 50 countries from throughout the Arab world and the Muslim world come and participate in a summit with the U.S. president is definitely historic. In terms of the results, I think it remains to be seen. Frankly, there were no details. There were general agreements to try to satisfy kind of the basic requirements of all sides, if you will. In terms of officialdom, Israel, Saudi Arabia, the Arab countries, everybody wanted, just like the U.S., wanted the success of this summit. But the problem lies with the public at large. I don't think, again, in the absence of detail, I don't think the president has managed to reset, as different U.S. officials try to describe the purpose of the visit, is to reset the relationship with the Arab world and the Muslim world. The results will probably be determined not in a short term, on a short-term basis. We will see a short honeymoon, but then again, as we begin to deal with the details, we're going to run into some difficulties down the road.
All right, Raghida, you want to say something?
Yeah, I want to say that it's too soon to say that the public is with or against. The public in the Arab region, in the Gulf states, for example, the public was very excited about the whole visit and the accomplishments during that visit. And I think the American public may be rather pleased with the amount of money that was agreed to come to generate jobs here in the United States. Certainly, there are those who are going to be skeptical and going to say, what is it? Why are they spending all this money, these Gulf states, and what for, and what's it going to produce for them? But I think it's too soon. What's more important is that there is now the President of the United States, Donald Trump, forged a new order with Muslim countries, with Arab countries, a front, if you will, against extremism, against terrorism, and that is with the total engagement of both. I'm not saying with boots on the ground from the United States,
right,
but certainly through from the Arab countries, indeed.
Raghida, let me ask you this. You talk about a new order, him forging a new order. To what extent was this an attempt by Mr. Trump to isolate Iran, to get some kind of new coalition against Iran?
Well, certainly Iran is part of the equation in the sense of the new order. Certainly, Iran is not considered as a country, a terrorist country, such as, you know, on equal footing with Daesh, with ISIS. Of course not. I think to Iran, there was a warning that, you know, you can't go on with your militias in Syria and in Iraq and other places. You can't go on too far. Because we don't really accept that you expand beyond your borders. That was the message from both the United States and the other Arab countries. Now, I'm a little bit worried about the extent of this message because I think it went too far when it got into, for example, Hezbollah in Lebanon, only because it threatens that country, only because when you go that far, you either back it or you have to back down. And I think now it's put Lebanon on a very nervous footing because, it was a clear warning. But then what's next? Is this like saying to Israel, yes, you could go ahead and do a military operation in Lebanon or not? I doubt it. I hope not. And but I think the warning to Iran is rather clear.
Okay, Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that it sort of reminds me of the George W. Bush days, sort of continuing with the same doctrine. George W. Bush had a very simplistic, divided the world into those who are with us and those who are against us, the good guys and the bad guys. And I think in that sense, that explains why he put Hezbollah, Hamas, and those other groups in the same camp as Iran and the extremists. Very, you know, sort of dividing the... But I think that, you know, to speak about, you know, it's a coalition that's been established,
right,
but it needs further nurturing, and it needs to come up with a common and concrete agenda, a set of principles to move forward, and that hasn't happened yet. I mean, besides the slogans that have come up and the anti-extremism, anti-Iran messages, it still has not been translated into actual policy, and that needs to happen.
Khalil, let me get your view on what Raghida was talking about, a new order, a realignment, if you like, in the Middle East. There's been some pushback from the Iranians. The Iranian president, who's just won re-election, had some hardline comments on Trump. Sure. And he said this. He said, Americans resorted to many different methods against Iran, but failed in all. We're waiting for the new U.S. administration to find stability and continuity in its policies. The problem is that the Americans do not know our region, and those who advise U.S. officials are misleading them.
It's not surprising at all. Basically, the Iranians viewed the speech by the president and some of the characterizations that he used vis-a-vis Tehran as a declaration of war for all practical purposes. The question is, does the region need that war? And is the U.S. willing to really engage in that type of war? So I'm not sure what benefit is there for the locals, the Arab allies of the United States in this respect. I think the region today, after the visit, in that respect, is a little bit more dangerous than it was before, due to that. Now, Raghida is a good friend, and Raghida is a very keen analyst of the region, and I respect her many years of experience in the region. But I beg to differ with her on one main thing. In analyzing this visit, you have to distinguish between officialdom and the people and the masses. It is true what she said, that many people in the region, again, from a distance, it looks like many people, rank and file, have basically welcomed this visit. But at the same time, my assessment as an analyst, it depends on more than just general impression. It depends on, for example, my last public opinion survey in the region. The last public opinion survey about a month ago showed 83% of Arabs, including Arabs in the Gulf, see U.S. policy in the region as very negative, only second to Iran. That is still there, despite the fact that public opinion was whipped in support of this, Disney Riyadh, if you will, the celebrations that we have witnessed. And it's fine with me. I don't blame, frankly, Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia was very successful in advancing its agenda on this trip. And I liked the PR they used and the celebratory nature of the visit.
Right.
But in practice, I'm not sure whether the region is better off today after the visit. And I'm not sure that public opinion is really so sold on it. I mean, the feedback I got, let's say, on my Twitter account from Saudis, they were very aggressive in opposing any positive statement on my part. And on the contrary, they were a lot more critical of the visit and the results of the visit than myself.
Right, Raghida, what do you make of that? Khalil just cited that survey that was done in the Arab world, 83% saying the U.S. is on the wrong track.
Yeah, I also want to express respect to my friend and colleague and differ. I don't think, first of all, that survey was done 1 month before the actual visit, and you were asking about the actual visit, which was only a few days ago. So that's number one distinction. Secondly, I don't think it was a Disney Riyadh. It was really a serious working relationship that was established there. I mean, agreements were signed, security agreements and others. So I don't think it's something that we can dismiss as Disney. Number three, I honestly feel that that Arabs in general do not trust the United States policies on the long term. But I think the feeling is now that, listen, now Donald Trump is coming back to say to the Arab region, to the Gulf region in particular, you matter. We are allies again. We are friends. That is a different, completely different rhetoric, if you will, or even the policies than those of Barack Obama, who said, no, you are on hold while I fix it with Iran. They feel that Iran was given the upper hand in the region by order of the United States of America, signed Barack Obama. Comes now Donald Trump and says, I want, again, to use the word reset, I'll use it, but I want to come back to say, you matter as allies. You are going to be our allies. Of course, they realize that the president has trouble at home, but in fact, really, they had no other choice but to embrace what he was offering. He was offering back security guarantees, partnership, going forward, telling Iran, you have to stop going into Arab lands. It is not about wanting to invade Iran. It is not about wanting to go into military strike against Iran. It is about telling Iran, be good within your borders, be great within your borders. And that's a very serious message. It's not Disney.
Khalil, Iran is an important country. Is there a danger in trying to isolate such a powerful and important player? I mean, if we're looking at the long-term stability of the region, Iran has to play a role, doesn't it?
Sure. I think there is no doubt in terms of the size and the impact, whether it's politically, geographically, strategically, of the importance of Iran in the region, and all parties in the region know that. However, Iran is also a very negative player in the region. I mean, there is no doubt that it has alienated its neighbors throughout the region. It has interfered in so many different conflicts in a negative way, yet at the same time claiming that it wants to befriend its Arab neighbors, but it has done nothing in practice to do so. So I do not blame the animosity in Gulf societies, if you will, toward Iran in terms of its interference, whether it's in Syria or whether it's in Yemen, whether what have you. But to agitate the public in countries like the Gulf countries, the GCC countries, where there is no democracy, and they admit that, there is no public participation in the political process. But when you agitate your public against an external enemy to this extent, you produce essentially a hysteria that does not recede. You're going to have some problems in the future with a neighbor that is apt to stay in the region. I don't think the Iranians are going anywhere. Okay. We hope that they get better in terms of their relationship with the Arab world, but they're not going anywhere.